Ladies and gentlemen, it is a party time.
HiRadio.
Prepare for more.
Come on. HiRadio, voice of the next generation.
Well, it's another day with my radio. Feeling excited, everybody wants to know what is making me happy. I'm always laughing and learning. What is making me happy? I'm always glued to the radio. HiRadio gives me all I want. HiRadio gives me all I feel. HiRadio gives me all I want. HiRadio gives me all I feel. Yeah, so keep listening. Never change the dial, bringing people together is what them a deal. HiRadio, you're the burst, you got me singing. HiRadio gives me all I want. HiRadio gives me all I feel. HiRadio gives me all I want. HiRadio gives me all I feel. Yeah, so keep listening. Never change the dial, bringing people together is what them a deal. HiRadio, you're the burst, you got me singing.
We don't think there's anything better out there, and I'm telling you, Ghana is a wonderful place. Might be my favorite country, favorite country, favorite country, favorite country, favorite country.
That's a very wonderful song at the background for the camp of Very Mamo. And he calls this one Bragana Yankovie. Oh my God, how I miss the nation called Ghana. Africa is my heart. A proud African from the Nkrumah East. So as I told you today, we'll be talking about Africa's history. And a very great Pan-Africanist who died exactly 60 years ago was the first Prime Minister of Dr. Congo in Africa, called Patrice Lumumba. And I'll be joined with a very great historian, George Sampon, one of my coolest brothers, being one of the great pioneers of HiRadio. And this one is a very great historian. So we marking the 60th anniversary of losing a very giant on the soil of Africa, Patrice Lumumba. My brother is here to really give us the in-depth of Patrice Lumumba. One of the people who really was really fighting for the unity of Africa. Africa unites! Africa unites! Africa unites! I'm so happy so much. A young man who was even less than the age of 40 years, who was born in 1925 and died in 1961, Patrice Lumumba. Today, we will be talking about this man. But before then, another music from the camp of Berima called Obribrini, which I love it so much. Enjoy this song. And when I come back, Patrice Lumumba, the guy who was assassinated, killed, and he was being killed again. Why? Okay.
HiRadio. For
everybody cheered him on. But when they asked the lion what happened, the lion kept quiet. Shh. So our elders say, until the lion has learned how to tell his story, the hunter always gets the glory. Who is telling your story? Don't let no one define you. Africa, arise. Yeah, yeah. Until the lion tells its side of the story, the hunter gets all the glory. Yeah. Until the lion tells its side of the story, the hunter gets all the glory. Oh, baby, nie, where to? Oh, baby, nie, where to? Una cuento wapi? Oh, baby, nie, where to? Oh, baby, nie, where to? Oh, baby, nie, where to? Una cuento wapi? Oh, baby, nie, yeah. Until the lion tells its side of the story, the hunter gets all the glory.
It is one of the songs I love so much from the camp of Berry Mamo.
Lion tells its side of the story,
And he says, until the lion
hunter
tells his side of the story, the hunter always takes the glory. And a very, very wonderful afternoon to you, Don Elvis.
una cuento wapi?
Wherever you are, big shout out to you, bro. I guess you're doing very fine. I'm also doing very fine.
Oh, baby, nie,
Afro Bongo, the best of African music.
oh, baby, nie,
For about 2 months, days, you know, we were really dealing with born dates. That is from Monday to Sunday. The qualities, the weakness, the strength. And now we've also jumped into the historian side, which I really love so much. Let's talk about Africa. Let's talk about history. Once upon a time, a man lived at our age who became the first prime minister of Dr. Congo. And he was one of the men who really preached about unity. This man was assassinated. And apart from being assassinated, Charlie, what then take do the man, eh? Thank God I have a very great historian here who would be really diving deep to give us the story. And if I have the time to chip in, ask some few questions, I would also do so. It's exactly 60 years since we lost this man called Patrice Lumumba. So let me go to Studio B, welcome my brother, ask him a few questions, how he has been managing the day with a very, very great serene atmosphere. He is a husband, he is a brother, having a son somewhere. He's a brother to me, but he's a father to somebody. His name is George Sampon. Yes. Let me just go to Studio B. Bro, nice to say, how you doing?
I'm I'm doing good, bro.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Great.
Yeah, checking the bass lineup. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I hope you're also doing well.
Man, I'm doing well. It's a very, very nice weather. So,
definitely.
I don't know how, you really enjoyed it. Was it like true work or you were only at home enjoying with your wife and kids,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's a bit surprising that we are having a weather like this in the Netherlands. Because they
It's been
say,
long,
yeah, because they say the weather in the Netherlands is very capricious.
Hey,
it's
it's
never
what?
stable.
It's not stable.
Yeah, it's not stable.
And
at
it's
all.
not
Yeah.
very hot.
It is capricious.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we say something is capricious, it's basically it's not
Stable.
stable. It's not
Okay.
consistent. It changes at any given time. This is what we've been dealing with for like the whole winter. Until this. We are in April, of course, and we are now experiencing a beautiful weather. So
Beautiful.
I mean, today no work. So I mean, one has to enjoy it while it lasts. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We thank God for that. I know you really have a great, it has been exactly, let's say, 60 years, right? 60 years since we lost a very great man.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know it's why you are here, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, January marks. This year remembers him. You know,
60 years of a very great man.
Exactly. I mean, Patrice Lumumba was. He was a great man indeed. I mean, the only tragedy revolving around his life is the fact he died so young.
Very young, at least very, very young.
He's one of a few African heroes who stood for Africa, for what Africa stands for. You know, so we lost a great man. We can never regain what we've lost.
Of course.
And that is really sad. And on this side of history, like today as we speak, or this year as we speak, Africa is still remembering. And we have a bloody history. For lack of better words, we have a bloody history. We have Kwame Nkrumah. It's crazy, and today we are just going to talk about it. We will talk. We are just going to take like a general outlook.
Okay.
But focusing a little on Patrice
him, of
Lumumba.
course. Okay.
Yeah.
So in a few minutes, we'll just be going to Studio B. Then actually we are already on Studio B.
Exactly,
So in a GV. I'll just be handling everything over to him so that he'll really brief us Africa, especially with this young man who really stood for Africa, but he got eliminated at a very young age. And I guess before I just dive into, I just want to ask this very brief: why is it that anyone who really is into we should be one as we one? I don't know how it happens. It's like they always have a way to just to just I don't know how to say to just
get the person out of the way.
Out. Why
exactly.
is it like that?
Yeah, I mean, we should always we can always look at it this way. We were for the most part colonized by the West, so we would understand that of course anybody who tries to stand in the way of the colonial master and his intentions would be wiped out, and that's what has happened over the course of Africa's history.
Wow.
Anyone who wants to stand up for Africa's right would be killed. Eventually. Wow. Especially if your ideologies and philosophy is not or are not in line with them. Of course, you are either a stooge or that you go your own way, and you either play the puppet or you die. That's what Western imperialism has done to Africa. You either stay as, in a sense, lower to them. They use you, they tell you what to do,
and still you do it.
But if you try to come out of that vein, or if you try to step outside of the the imperial philosophy of the West. That's how I would put it. Then you would be wiped out, definitely. And so I think that's what we know in African history. That's what we understand. Not the history that's recorded in the books, definitely not. But the history by word of mouth. The history that we hear around by rumor. By certain facts that are not recorded in history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, bro. So like now in a GV, I just want to give you the whole road. Please. Who is he?
Yeah.
In his school days?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
of course. I'm listening to you. Sir.
All right. So I mean, before I really set off on who Patrice Lumumba is, there are some quotes that he left, and I just want us to take a look at these quotes. I'll just read through quickly. There are just 10 quotes. Indeed, I really cannot leave any out because they are so very remarkable.
Yeah.
And this is what he said, in different settings, of course, but at one time during a speech that he gave at the All African Conference in Leopoldville, August 1960, he said, the colonialists care nothing for Africa for her own sake. They are attracted by African riches, and their actions are guided by the desire to preserve their interest in Africa against the wishes of the African people.
Wow.
For the colonialists, all means are good if they help them to possess these riches. Wow. These are some of the things that he said.
It's very deep.
Yeah. So, if you talk like this, then you definitely would have to accept the fact that you'll be killed. Either your life is in danger, the same with Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
When Ghana won its independence, he stood on the podium and, he said, at long last, Ghana is free forever. And then during the statement, he mentioned from here on the United States of Africa. Of course, so things like this, if you talk about things like this, then of course your life is in danger. And a thing he also said at the same conference, he said political independence has no meaning if it is not accompanied by rapid economic and social development.
Very true.
Yeah. And then thirdly, he said
Africa too, is not really happening for us.
He says, without dignity there is no liberty, without justice there is no dignity, and without independence there are no free men. This is a letter he wrote to his wife.
Wow.
Letter from Thiesville prison, Congo, in his own country. When he was imprisoned, he wrote a letter, and this is what he told his wife: that without dignity there is no liberty, without justice there is no dignity, and without independence there are no free men. Then he once again said a minimum of comfort is necessary for the practice of virtue. And then he also said the day will come when history will speak, but it will not be the history which will be taught in Brussels, Paris, Washington, or the United Nations. Africa will write its own history in both North and South. It will be a history of glory and dignity. This he also wrote from prison.
Wow.
So and then we have again, he says that the only thing which we wanted for our country is the right to a worthy life, to dignity without pretense, to independence without restrictions. This was never the desire of the Belgian colonists and their Western allies. This he wrote also from prison. And then the seventh quote says, these divisions which the colonial powers have always exploited the better to dominate us have played an important role and are still playing that role in the suicide of Africa. We know that Africa is neither French nor British nor American nor Russian, that it is African. We know the objects of the West. Yesterday they divided us on the level of a tribe, clan and village. They want to create antagonistic blocks, satellites, etc., etc. This he also said at his speech at the All African Conference. And then ninth quote says, no one is perfect in this imperfect world. This is just a general quote that he said. And then the 10th one says, African unity and solidarity are no longer dreams. They must be expressed in decisions. So intentionally, I have to quote these words, so that people would get the picture of
who he really is,
of who the man was and what he stood for. He died unfortunately at a very young age of 35 years old.
Wow.
But
very
young. And to think that at that age he would already be desiring to lead his country to the right direction is incredible, because he was so young and he was a threat to the puppets, who were following Western orders. And Belgium was at the time the imperialist in Congo. So
rulers in Congo.
Yeah, exactly, rulers in Congo in that sense. So we just take just a dive into his life, basically, for us to see what Patrice Lumumba is all about. Well, Patrice Lumumba, his name, his real name, as was given to him, was Patrice Emery Lumumba. And he was a Congolese, of course, a Congolese politician, and he was an independence leader who served at the as the first prime minister of the independence of the Democratic Republic of the Congo from June until September 1960. The span of his involvement in politics was very short. I think it was, I think literally he actually led his party for less than a year. Before he was killed. Wow. Yeah, it is said that he played a very significant role in the transformation of the Congo from a colony of Belgium, I mentioned earlier, into an independent republic. Ideologically an African nationalist and a Pan-Africanist. If you personally, if you remove Kwame Nkrumah, if you take Kwame Nkrumah aside, I would say that Patrice Lumumba is the next Pan-Africanist who had Africa at heart. I mean, for real, this was a truly great man. So if people are aware of the Congo crisis, I don't know that Congo went through
war,
which is even having some after effects, even
still really happening,
to this day. And it's been like how many years ago, and still they are having their after effects. And it was during this time that Patrice Lumumba was around, and actually trying to stand for Africa. And it's just unfortunate that he didn't live long enough to see his dream realized, as he truthfully wanted Africa to gain its independence. Patrice Lumumba was born on 2nd July 1925 to a farmer, Francois Tolenga. Their name is very difficult to mention, Ote Shima or something, and his wife Julienne Wamato Lomenja. In Unalwa, the Katakokombe region of the Kasai province of the Belgian Congo. Around this time, of course, Belgium was very heavily in the country, so they were taking over the country as the colonial masters. He was a member of the Tetela ethnic group and was born with the name Elias Okit Asombo. His original surname means hair of the cursed. Wow. Hair of the cursed, and is derived from the Tetela words Ukita, Ukito, that's hair or successor. So somebody who is who basically inherits a curse. Sometimes names can be a bit tricky, and you don't even, because this was, but I think Lumumba means the gifted one also. So his name is a bit kind of contradictory. A man who is gifted, and then we have a man,
and he's cursed also.
A man,
a gifted
who has inherited a curse. So well, sometimes you don't know how destiny plays out, but here is a man whose name has this oxymoron. Well, okay, so we take a look at his life again. Outside of his regular studies, Lumumba took an interest in the Enlightenment ideals of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Voltaire. These were, I think, Frenchmen. He was also fond of Molière and Victor Hugo. Most people know Victor Hugo, so I mean, Europeans are familiar with this name, or those who are into philosophy and art would, I think, would be familiar with this name. He wrote poetry, and many of his works had an anti-imperialist theme. When you look at men like Steve Biko of South Africa, they held, I think, the same ideals like Kwame Nkrumah also. He worked as a traveling beer salesman in Leopoldville and as a postal clerk in Stanleyville post office for 11 years in 1951. He married Pauline Opangu.
Young, eh?
Yeah.
At a very young age,
At a very
I think.
young age, yeah, exactly. Well, the Africa then is not the Africa now,
Now, of
because
course.
now we take so much time to marry. You know. In the period following World War II, young leaders across Africa increasingly worked for national goals and independence from the colonial powers. This was when you would see people like Kwame Nkrumah, you know, coming up. They were youths or probably in their early 20s or so, and they were standing up for their rights. You know, one of the things I find very fascinating is that the West gave some scholarships to some of these students, only for them to go and come back and win independence for their various countries. I'm sure they just didn't know that they had that in mind, but they were smart enough to understand that, okay, you know, we need to stand up for our country, our continent. And so this was some of the things that happened. So around this time, some of these young men were, you know, coming up. It would interest people to know that excuse me for a moment. It would interest people to know that around this time it wasn't only Patrice Lumumba.
Okay.
But like Kwame Nkrumah, there were other 6 African leaders who were also assassinated. That's why in the beginning I said, that we would take a general look. We cannot concentrate, of course, only on Patrice Lumumba. So we know Patrice Lumumba around this time, he was fighting for, for his place in politics.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that is the only way you can fight the imperialist. You have to do it sometimes diplomatically, you know. You find your way to form your party, you find a way to win the approval of the people, and then you can actually begin to speak to them.
Yeah.
So around this young age, young Lumumba was trying to infiltrate and win his people over to himself, and then try to win some independence for Congo. So we look at him and other 6 we would say Pan-Africanists who were also assassinated.
Wow.
So Patrice Lumumba, Prime Minister of newly independent Congo, was the second of 5 leaders of independence movements in African countries to be assassinated in the 1960s. In the 1960s alone, by their former colonial masters or their agents. A 6th we know is Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who was also ousted in Western-backed coup in 1966.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the coup d'etats that happened in Africa was that they were all, for the most part, backed by the West. It wasn't Africans who turned against their leaders. For the most part, it was the imperialists who actually engineered the coup. And then only because of the ideals of these individuals, they were very intent on Africa's freedom, but so that the West would still have her hands in Africa's riches. They don't want it to happen. So of course, fast forward to today, we have all the African leaders we have today. Without being afraid to say, if one would be so courageous to say, they are all puppets.
All of them.
They are all stooges. They are cowards. They have betrayed us big time. Because of course, every time we find any Pan-Africanist, any African leader who wanted a different orientation for Africa besides what is being dictated by the colonial masters, that person becomes a threat and eventually gets killed. So now if you want to live long, then you play a stooge. You play a puppet for the West, So now we do not have, of course there are leaders in Africa, but now they are afraid. Because if you avail yourself too much to the public eye and to be very vocal about your ideals, then of course you'll go down, So that's how it's always been. So we have a 6th, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, who was ousted. We all know this in our history. Sorry. And then the 7th is Amilcar Cabral, leader of the West African Liberation Movement against Portugal, of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, in Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, was assassinated in 1973. So Lumumba's death in 1961 followed on from that of the opposition leader of Cameroon, Felix Mumi, poisoned in 1960.
Wow.
So we have Sylvanus Olympio, leader of Togo. He was also killed in 1963. We have Mehdi Ben Barka, leader of the Moroccan opposition movement, was kidnapped in France in 1965, and his body never found.
Wow.
And then we have Eduardo Mondlane, leader of the Mozambique's Frelimo, fighting for the independence from the Portuguese, died from a parcel bomb in 1963.
Like how they
did Kwame Nkrumah. I think it was a little girl who was handing over a flower. It blew. He almost dodged, but I think that there were some. I think the particles of the bomb entered a few of them, and then he got skin cancer also. So the loss of 50 years ago of this group of leaders. So it's 50 years ago, basically, who all knew each other. Of course, they all knew each other. Of course, it makes sense because they were all for the same ideals, all for the same philosophies, all had the same vision. They wanted a united Africa. Like, of course, Europeans have a united Europe, the European Union, so EU. And so these young men who were very enlightened, very vocal, very enthusiastic, zealous for their own continent, they were wiped out, and they were all actually friends. So imagine how formidable they would be if they had truly come together,
Serious.
Yeah, and to me, I would say the last of them was Muammar Gaddafi,
of course,
who actually was also part of the African Union. Haile Selassie was also killed. I mean, Marcus Garvey. We can name a lot of Pan-Africanists, who actually paved the way. And for these men also, as young as they were, actually kicked in, and they were trying their best to make sure that Africa would win her independence, not just the various nations for themselves alone, but actually for Africa to win her independence, because they knew that a unified Africa would be stronger. And so that's what they were trying to do. I think Kwame Nkrumah would have been the head of the African Union, more or less, because he was actually the visionary behind it. So, the loss 50 years ago of this group of leaders who all knew each other and had a common political project based on national dignity crippled each of their countries and the African continent. The effects are still evident today. When we take our place, you look at Congo and you can tell, you look at Ghana and you can tell. Kwame Nkrumah achieved so much in such a short span. I think 10 years he ruled or so. But still,
I'm sure
in
it was
this,
like, let's say 8 years or so.
8 to 10 years. Well,
9 years.
But he did so well. If you look at the things that Kwame Nkrumah achieved, Ghana is still living off of his achievements.
Of course, then you could really see that.
That tells you, because what he did is still, is resonating into like the present day. So imagine if he had been given more time, or if he had actually finished his term whatsoever. Ghana was a republic at the time. It wasn't a democratic, nation to say. Ghana was a republic, and they thought that they believed Kwame Nkrumah was a dictator only because his rule was Republican. And of course, Republican rule means that he would stay until somebody else would take over, But then they wouldn't let it be because, the West were selling democracy to us. So I think that Africa thought, okay, democracy is the way for us to go. It was Rawlings who actually turned Ghana into a democratic, into a democracy to say, So
okay, bro.
Go ahead.
I just feel that it's good you just have a drink or something.
Then
from there, we go to the next chapter. But for anyway, very very great. Good afternoon to you, my friend, my brother from Italy, Prince Japan from Italy. A very, very wonderful afternoon to you. Not forgetting you, DJ Sambash, also watching me live from Italy. And also to you, Oba Hima Duvie. Abba Padufi, and she says deep words, bro. Your words are deep. And we are also live on Hits FM Amsterdam. A very, very, very great good afternoon to you all. And also special one to you, Nana Jemai. Today we're just talking about a great man from the soil of Africa. It has been 60 years old, exactly 60 years since this man was executed or assassinated. We're really talking about African history, talking about how Africa would have been if we really had the likes of Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, and his great icons really ruling Africa. Let's just go for a very tea break. And when we come back, my brother continues. Patrice Lumumba, his death. How did they really, brought this idea to just kill a young man because he was really standing for his country and also standing from Africa? A song that I really love so much from a very great Pan-African is called Nach Brew. He says, Wagbe Jeke. If you really know how it goes, you really know that this man is saying something deep. Enjoy this song and I'll be right back.
Kaja Israel, Kaja Egypt, Kaja Ethiopia, Kaja Sudan, Waja Shong. Kaja Ikushima, Wani me kona me Waja Shong. So Timbuktu, Ghana, Mali, Sumanguru, Waja Shong. Waja Jake, Waja Shong. Manchester, Sumanguru, Wagwejeke, Waja Shong. Masetu, Wamasa, Yasan, Waja Shong. Kaja Israel, Kaja Egypt, Kaja Ethiopia, Kaja Sudan, Waja Shong. Akwaka, Bachimo, Afro Karacha, Akachimo, Anunyam Feng.
I really wish that you really understand this song. I love it to the core. The reason why Africa isn't working like how my brother said is that we are having presidents who are cowards, who are puppets. The likes of Muhammad Gaddafi, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Sankara. Africa, like Africa would be like Dubai, I tell you. And also may your soul rest in peace. The originator of Pan-Africanism, Marcus Garvey. Today we're just talking about history, talking about Africa, talking about a young man who died 60 years ago just because he really had it in his heart that there should be unity in Africa and that Africa, we should carry our own country. We don't need any orders from the above. This man was executed, and it was so bad, assassinated. And I have my brother George Sampon here, who is really helping us. And Ovaya Adufie says, I'm learning your dancing moves. Oh, my DJ. God bless you, dear Oba Adufie. Africa, still we facing Doomso. Africa, it's let me just go to Studio B. We just have a limited time, of course. But yes, we're talking about Africa and once upon a time great leaders in Africa. Okay, bro. Once again, welcome back. Let's,
thank
you know,
bro.
I
your time.
it's
course.
very limited, but anyway.
I think one thing that our audience need to understand is this is not an exhaustive look into the life of Patrice Lumumba. Of course, we don't have the time to delve deep into his life and everything that he stood for, but we are just scratching the surface. That this year remembers him, as a great Pan-Africanist, and we are just touching on it. So it's not really an exhaustive look into history or anything. It's just for us to kind of communicate, and to just take a look at Africa for where she's coming from in terms of these leaders who tried their best to stand up for what they believed in, especially for the movement of Africa forward. And of course, for us to cut ties with the West and to do our own thing, so that Africa can be herself. We are still in the doldrums economically. We are not able to I say that Africa seems to be free, but everywhere she's in chains. We are still walking with a ball and chain. In every aspect, we are not able to have the freedom that we so deserve, only because the West will not stop interfering in our affairs and
in our business.
In this sense, Africa has a very long way to go. Like we are lagging behind because of Western imperialism. We are still experiencing what one would say the embers of Western imperialism. Like we are not fully outside of it,
free from it.
And I personally believe that we are still being controlled by the West, only this time more intellectually than physically.
First,
it's now behind closed doors because we have, of course, puppets who would actually do what they say, and these puppets, our betrayers, are the ones on the throne. They are the ones ruling us now. I just want to just briefly read the ideology, the philosophy, or the real outlook of Patrice Lumumba. What makes him a special person, and what makes him comparable to Kwame Nkrumah. He stood for something. People actually in a sense assassinated his character, his rhetoric, his ideologies, only because that is what they do for the most part. They would let the person look so bad.
Yes,
but that's really not who the person is. But of course, they will assassinate you and your character. They will first begin to assassinate your character, and then they'll find a way to assassinate you literally. Yourself, But Patrice did not necessarily espouse a comprehensive political or economic platform. It's not like he had this
big stage,
this particular thing, like I want to do this particular thing.
Okay.
No, that's not what he necessarily stood for. But like Kwame Nkrumah, he was the first Congolese to articulate a narrative of the Congo that contradicted traditional Belgian views of colonization, and he highlighted the suffering of the indigenous population under European rule. We are looking at a kind of Rawlings in him. Rawlings was a strong Pan-Africanist.
Very straight guy.
Rawlings was a strong Pan-African. Given that he was an outcast, it's quite interesting that he really was a Pan-Africanist. Rawlings was a true unpretended Pan-Africanist because he was very vocal about it. It's not like he said it haphazardly, you know. He was very vocal. Like he himself would talk about how he's a Pan-Africanist, you know, and held some of the ideals of Kwame Nkrumah. And he actually applauded men like Patrice, you know, and all these people. And so this man actually, his main objective was that he highlighted the suffering of the indigenous population under European rule. This is a true African son. You know, this is a true son of Africa because he cared more about the indigenous people. You know, he wasn't like trying to implement someone would say a form of oligarchy, you know, like people who are rich to kind of rule the country. This man looked at like the average person and understood, you know, and understood their suffering. He looked at, you know, like the poor mother who couldn't fend for her child. You know, he was looking at like the locals, and he felt for them, and he wanted freedom for his people, and he was killed for what he stood for. And they, you know, I mean, lambasted him, assassinated his character, and all that. Lumumba was alone among his contemporaries in encompassing all Congolese people in his narrative, you know, and he offered a basis for national identity that was predicated upon having survived colonial victimization, as well as the people's innate dignity, humanity, strength, and unity. Lumumba's ideal of humanism included the values of egalitarianism, social justice, liberty, and the recognition of fundamental rights. You know, what he had was what the Black Panthers of America had, egalitarianism, because basically egalitarianism means that equal rights for everybody. We are all the same. We all deserve equal treatment. It's not like there should be an hierarchy of like this person here, that, you know. So this was a man who believed in egalitarian ideals. So he had the correct mindset for Africa, and that's the way it should be. Just like if you come to Europe, because pan-Europeanism also has this at the basis of their beliefs. That's why in Europe, when you come to Europe, you see everything is like standardized. You know, you don't see this, like the rich people are not flaunting their wealth. It's not like they are actually pushing it into your face kind of thing. But in Europe, it's standardized living. Everybody can buy something at H&M, sort of, you know. But this is in more of an economic sense. But what this man stood for was that he stood for equal rights for all. How can a person like this be termed dangerous? Because that's what the Belgian officials, that's how they saw him, and that's what they gave as information to the people, that he was dangerous, and that's why they actually held him in prison. You know, so this is what he advocated for, a very simple understanding of humanity. This is what he stood for. And so he viewed the state as a positive advocate for the public welfare and its intervention in Congolese society, necessary to ensure equality, justice, and social harmony. You know, so this is what he stood for. His political ideology was just this, that he wanted social justice, egalitarianism. You know, he just wanted everybody to feel okay in their own country, and, you know, to I mean, for them for him and his party, you know, as a government, to help ensure that this actually comes to pass. That's the same ideal that Kwame Nkrumah had for, you know, but Ghana. Of course he never lived to realize the full potential of his dreams, you know. So but I also just want to talk about his death.
His death is what I wanted to
exactly
really ask
because do you know, I mean, Patrice Lumumba, I mean, his death is one of the goriest in history. They killed him mercilessly, you know. It was such a disrespectful way of killing a man. One Julian, I think it was Julian Gate, if I'm not wrong. He was the one who actually led his killing. You know, it was Julian Gate. He was actually from Belgium. I mean, a white man. Yeah, to say. Of course, they were behind this. What people don't know is during this time when Patrice Lumumba was struggling for the independence of his nation, he called for help from United States of America. He didn't get it. President at the time was Eisenhower. I don't know if people are aware, but he was then the president, and it is said that he actually planned for his death too. That Patrice Lumumba should be poisoned. Britain, of course, was behind it also because they wanted him to die. Worst of all, what I learned,
he was a strong guy.
Exactly. No, he was trying to seek their help, but they didn't even give him the help. What actually breaks my heart is the UN, because he also asked for their help, and they turned him down. They didn't even mind him at all. But so he turned to the Soviet Union, and then they labeled him a communist. The reason why they did that was that the Soviet Union at the time was a communist, was like a communist nation, the Soviet Union. That's I think Russia also, which actually makes up Russia, Ukraine, and other places. Yeah, so they thought that by him seeking help from that place meant that he actually embraced the ideals of the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union was a communist nation like China now. Because basically communism says what is yours is not yours, it's for the nation. So the nation is what actually has a say on your properties. That's what it basically says. What's yours is not for you, it's for everybody. So I mean, you share the wealth among everyone. But I mean, communism is not even communism as they say. It's just it's just a way of ruling with wicked intentions. So Patrice Lumumba was imprisoned by state authorities under Mobutu and executed by a firing squad under the command of Katangan authorities. Following his assassination, he was widely seen as a martyr for the wider Pan-African movement. In 2002, Belgium formally apologized for its role in the assassination. And I would just say this, that many people don't know this, but Patrice Lumumba, after he died, his body was collected, and just so that they wouldn't have a burial place for him. This is how wicked the people who killed him were. When they got his body, they cut his body into pieces and poured sulfuric acid on it. So that he wouldn't be noticed. He wouldn't be whatever is there. They just didn't want him to be found. So they just killed him in this very heartless and merciless way. So remembering Patrice Lumumba, I think they say his name is pronounced Lamamba. So remembering Patrice Lumumba, I just want to say that Africa needs to move forward. Africa is still lagging behind. We need people like him, but people like him are now afraid, because if they come out of their shells, they will be killed, just like people like Patrice Lumumba. So this is how he died. This is what he left behind at a very young age, 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anyway, you really had a very shocking but a very painful history from Patrice Lumumba. And as we said, it has been 60 years since this great man of my age, of our age, as young as this.
She's got a system they call apartheid. It keeps up.
This guy was killed. But anyway, big shout out to GH Kings.
But maybe pressure will make.
And he says he's really enjoying this history and he's really learning as well. So anyway, I'll be signing out very soon.
Joanna, give me hope.
But then there's a question that I really want to ask George before we go, that will we ever have youth who really stand like, who want to stand to really rule us?
Africa.
Yeah. Will we?
Yeah, well, I'll be very honest about this, if we talk about finding youth as strong and powerful as people like Nkrumah, and Lumumba or Steve Biko, and their ilk, I think that it will be very difficult, given that today's youth is given to too much entertainment, and they are not serious.
That is very true.
Yeah, so, if Nkrumah and Patrice Lumumba were as shallow as today's youth, they wouldn't have risen up to stand for what they stood for. But of course, I'm not trying to say that there aren't youth today who are serious, who take things very seriously. There are, but where are they now? Because now we are so crippled by fear of what the West is capable of doing. Because now we should understand that as the years go by, the West becomes more desperate, because they need to continue to get their hands in Africa's soil. Because if not, their posterity would die off, either of hunger, because Africa is actually providing for the West, in terms of food.
Yes, of
and
course.
apart from that, apart from the fact that they steal from us, there are certain agreements too. So do you know that Africa is so powerful that we can actually put the whole world at a stand, literally at a standstill, if we have leaders who are willing to stand for the cause, But so if you ask the question, are there youth who can actually do things that Patrice and his contemporaries did? Yes, I'm sure there are, because there will always be an upcoming youth who have some of these ideologies, because they say there's nothing new under the sun. No idea is original. There's nothing new under the sun. And I know that there are some youth who are studying these men, because of course history in a sense have immortalized the name of these men. African youths will come and they will learn from them, and some of them will use where they ended as a stepping stone to actually continue. But as to when it will happen, it's a struggle to tell.
Very long
and
years to go.
It's a long battle. Maybe Christ would come and
still we haven't
and still we may not be able to do it. But here is what I want to say. For Africa to gain her independence, it will be one of the most difficult tasks the world has ever seen, or Africa herself has ever seen. It is the greatest enterprise confronting Africa right now, because the West cannot allow that. That's the problem. The West must continue to manipulate Africa, because the day that the West will leave Africa to herself, for Africa to have her independence, will be the day that you know what the West are afraid of. They're afraid of bowing to Africa. They don't want to bow to the black. To blacks. They have created something like a power play. We bow to them, we borrow from them. We are owing them so much that we have to continue to give them our diamonds and gold and our minerals and our crops and all that as payment for them. So they keep us on a mortgage, and keeping us on a mortgage means we will never be able to pay our debt. We are owing so much that it will take like
billion years,
hundreds of years, probably 1,000 years to be able to pay. And this is the way they've kept us crippled. The more we collect loans from them, the more our hands are in their mouths and they can bite at any given time, because we owe them. And so this is what paralyzes Africa from actually gaining her independence. How do you gain independence from people that you owe so much? So we are talking about a losing battle here. It's not easy to win. So who is the African youth, or who are the African youth who would stand? So unless there is a bloodbath where it is going to actually truly revolutionize Africa's name or whatever. But if that is not done, then it will be very hard. If we are going to use the means of diplomacy, or we are going to sit down and talk about it, it will never happen. It can't happen as long as the West continue to exist. Unless we go back to how it used to be many thousands of years ago, when nations will rise against nations and take their nations back. Unless that Africa rises up and the whole Africa says, no, we won't. But as long as we have in our midst the Judases, those who are betraying us, our presidents of today who are betraying us and who are so greedy, and all they want is they and their families to be comfortable, and so-called the way our government is running now would make it so hard for Africa to have. So I don't think that any youth can ever come up. There can be an insurrection whatsoever, but it will always turn into a civil war. And this is why we have civil wars. Because every time the youth rise up, or every time a particular group of people rise up, then there is the problem of the one who is in power to try to, stifle the insurrection, which makes it very hard. So we are talking about something that looks almost impossible. And then there is also one thing I would like to say. Africa is too polarized, so it will be hard for us to come together. We have different groups of people who have different ideas, about how Africa should go forward. But if we have one mind, one vision, this is the only way. And that is what Kwame Nkrumah was trying to do. That is what Haile Selassie was trying to do. Muammar Gaddafi was trying to do. That is what all these men were trying to do. But they killed them. Our true heroes, you know, the true heroes of Africa are dead and gone. So now we need a new set of heroes, you know. Yeah. So unless that, I don't know if there is a convergence going on, if there are some African youth who are thinking, okay, this is what we are going to do, then the way, I mean, to have Africa's independence is sweeping onto. Otherwise, then, yeah, we are still hanging in the balance, you know. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's very, 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 very hurtful. But as my brother said, it's very true. And also this one from M.A.B.A. M.A.B.A. says, Africa, we really have a long way to go. And as my brother said, to really have youth this day who would really stand for Africa, you'll be having some groups say, pam, 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 pam. And our youth are so busy. African youth are so busy. Social media insulting each other, twerking. Oh my God. One day my greatest prayer that there will be, and how he is saying it seems impossible, because even if you have this mindset to rise up, fight for Africa, you can't go far, because these people knows how to rule you. And I saw something that really hurt me so much, as I was saying, to have the Asian people ruling over Zambia, it is very painful. They are ruling there as rulers. Why? Because Africa can't feed itself. Why? Because Africa, we always have Judas in us if we feel that we want to be one. May God have mercy on our soul. The name is Royal Baby. Today we really talked about Patrice Lumumba. And he's one of the guys who really had a painful assassination. He was imprisoned by his own people. And I really know you really know this man. His name was Mobutu Sese Seko. And the painful thing is that after he was being shot, what they could do more is that they cut this man into pieces. And they poured acid on him. So his bones, you can't find him. Patrice Lumumba. So my big question is that when will Africa come out? When will Africa be also liberated?
It keeps a brother in a subjection, but maybe pressure will make Joanne.
I say bye-bye to you.
Oh, everybody could live as one.
And the next program continues. But anyway, big shout out to you, Mina-ABA. Mina-ABA says we. He says we are in hate and pain with white people. To all that I understand is we fighting white people. But yeah, dear, I really feel that, see, before a white man would do you anything, he always uses a black man first. So if we have anyone to fight, let's eliminate the Judas among us. But the big question is, how would you identify them? Africa, oh! Anytime I walk around Europe, you know, I used to travel around Europe. And whenever I go to other countries, you see how they have really structured their nation. And one of the things that really pops into my mind is that when will Africa be like this? Common electricity. Eki kibo. is a problem.
Got supporters in higher places.
We having leaders who are puppets.
The city's son, Joanna, give them the fans.
They've been trampled upon. African leaders, name them.
The one who
Accommodate.
she even knows.
Yeti gold, yeti boaso, yeti diamond. So accommodate. At the end of the day, he's now a president and is a problem.
For every bad move that is Joanna make, they gotta
Electricity is now a problem in Ghana again. Wow.
be home.
Are we serious?
Joanna, give me hope.
Upon all the bauxites and the diamonds and the timbers and everything that we have,
It keeps a brother in a sub,
we still go begging.
but maybe pressure will make Joanna.
God willing, next week we will talk more.
Body could have live as one.
Please, when you say a prayer, say one to Africa.
Hope, Joanna, give me hope. Joanna, for the morning come. Give me hope. Joanna, hope. Joanna, hope before the morning come.
Today, really, on health matters, I wanted us to talk something small about the reason or the benefits of bathing cold water.
Every mother in a black soul.
But it means,
The killing of another
I've really wasted enough.
sin across
And God, I just really hold on for now. God willing, next week
and having lived.
we would really continue.
She doesn't care if the fun and games.
So a big shout out to everyone. Big shout out to GH Kings.
Everyone, hope,
Big shout out to you, Mami Abna. Big shout out to you, Mina Ama.
Joanna,
Big shout out to you, Obapa Dufie.
for the morning.
To you, Prince Saint. To you, DJ Sambash.
Joanna, give me
When you say a prayer, remember Africa.
morning come.
Everything is corruption. Everything is bribery. Everything it seems that Africa, we are never serious. Big shout out to you, Hollande Paris. My French brother, which I miss so much. You want to say,
Place
Cordier. I guess you're doing very fine.
the city's son. Joanna, give them the fancy money. Oh, to tempt anyone who come. She even knows how to swing opinion in every magazine and the journals. For every bad move that is Joanna make, they got a good explanation. Oh, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna, for the morning come. Give me
How can you have gold
hope
and you are poor?
before the
It doesn't even make sense. It doesn't really make sense.
for Jesus. The Archbishop is a peaceful man. Together say that the freedom.
And also big shout out to you, my brother, Prince Steve Kofi Sigeria. Very nice to say.
I wanna know if you're blind.
I guess you're doing very fine. I miss you. Greetings to your wife.
Subjection
I guess you guys are doing very, very
will
fine.
make
It's a wonderful Saturday
of everybody.
with a very gloomy atmosphere. Please just go out,
Joanna,
have a walk.
Joanna, give me hope. Joanna,
We've been indoors for long, quarantine, social distancing, and yeah.
hope before the morning come. I hear she makes
And
up
my brother really says something that
to buy new weapons any shape of gun.
African youth are now into entertainment too much.
So here's the killing
The mind to stand for Africa and rebuild Africa is not there.
across all the neighbors' borders.
All our girls who should have been smart enough
Fun,
are now slave queens,
care if the fun and games.
having big breasts, pumping the anyas.
Everyone, oh, give me hope, Joanna,
And this youth that we really had interest in so much are also doing fraud.
come and give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna, hope before the morning come.
Slave queens. They are live on Instagram, slaying, twerking, and everything. How can they have the mindset to rebuild Africa?
Who turn their heads to the city's sun?
Anyway, my name is DJ Royal, baby. If you don't know,
Oh, to tempt
I'm a true descendant of Nkrumah, bloodly related
to swing
from Nkrofo.
in
We don't joke. One day, Africa will be like Europe. One day.
Now make they got a good explanation. Oh, give me hope, Joanna, give me hope, Joanna.
So very good thanks. A very big thanks to my studio manager Slim Heavy, making sure everything is intact. At exactly 6 p.m., Sylvia Kenny would also be coming our way with our East African Spotlights, giving you every update in East Africa on health, entertainment, politics, social issues, and more. 8:30 to 10:30 p.m. The entertainment guys, today it gonna be serious. Last week they really dealt on something. Artists who are good in stage performance. So today is something new. And after then, DJ Slim Heavy also come your way with Weekend Flex, Midnight Edition. Great music, fresh release. And also DJ Invisible continues till morning Sunday. If this song ends and you don't really hear from me again, I say bye-bye to you. And I believe freedom will come one day. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I believe.